So the most important thing is obviously to introduce you to, the people that will be watching this. Okay. So I'm talking to Nuno Reis, who is a former quant trader, Bloomberg man, and a string theory mathematician with a postdoc from Oxford. And I'm uh, kind of curious about this man. Okay. Um, where he started a program and a cohort called Red Dots, and what compelled him to go down this route,
Mhm.
given his amazing education. Um, so that's kind of where I am with the start of this conversation. Nuno, if you want to say more.
No, thank you, Keith, also for the invite. I think this is going to be different channels. So whoever is watching, probably some of you will know me, others not yet. And yeah, on top of what Keith has shared, I did my career in finance for 18 years. Before that, in academic studies, and now I'm developing this concept and the product, which is the rare dots, which we hopefully we're going to dive deeper. But I think it's more here is like understanding the journey itself. So you may see yourself in part in that journey and some things that may resonate with you, and kind of it gives you a bit of a what I call the usual catalyst for a change. So
Mm.
potentially that's where this kind of a conversation will go through.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always believe there'll be a cathartic moment somewhere. Okay. Okay. The thing is that we're not really, I don't think that we're really looking in the right place. Okay.
Mm.
Whereas in your case, you pushed most of us, those who have been working with you for some time. I've been sort of working in and out with you for the last, what, maybe 3 years or so.
Yeah, pretty much. I think more than that, but about that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you brought up this whole idea of uncertainty. Okay. Um, and in that world, you started introducing these AI prompts, which started looking at a far more unusual place to start looking. And the words like non-obvious, non-logical, making possible what was not possible, sort of started kicking up. Where did you get that stuff from?
So this is has been kind of a journey. Not it's not a linear, right? And the AI components actually come much later, more in terms of inviting people into this type of a work. It was only November last year, 2025, that I really put the prompts out there because before it was a lot about understanding the uncertainty from a different perspective, that as a
Yeah,
source of creativity, as a lot of the work that I have done, say in finance in particular, was a lot to do with uncertainty, more about really kind of a try to control or even try to quantify. And there's a difference between the risk and uncertainty. But without getting into details, you may be familiar as well with the black swan concept, which is like these one-off events that really no one has ability to predict them and has a huge consequence. So it's a very low probability and a very high consequence into the economy, into the society at large, and to you as a
yeah,
person. Like 2008 crisis, in a way, you could label that as a black swan, although certain people already kind of seeing ahead that was something wrong. But more kind of a more recent, probably like the pandemic was another big black swan that catch most of people by surprise that had huge consequence. So this kind of the source of the uncertainty that people are used to creates a lot of anxiety, creates a lot of fear. It's all about trying to control, trying to predict. That was pretty much my world in a way. And there was like something in there, and we can go dive into terms of what was the catalyst that led me to leave my career that we were talking before. But overall, these ideas were developing in the sense that there's also the other side of the uncertainty and the unknown, that without that unknown, without that uncertainty, the innovation will not be possible. And that in the sense of making us to think and go into places that will challenge our kind of logic, our perceptions. But we're only able to do that by going into that place of uncertainty. And I'm not just referring to kind of understanding kind of a different concepts. It's really like building new things that we're not really aware of them. That's more about creativity. It's not so much about understanding things in a different way. It's part of that, but it's more about what I call creating new knowledge, right? So this concept of creating new knowledge is far from, say, the linear process, and there's a lot of the scientific method that
Mhm.
comes with my academic studies, like this usual way of measuring and then kind of doing kind of the 1% improvement, kind of this scientific method in a way that is then linked with Bayesian thinking for those who are familiar with the concept. But it's all about kind of the kind of putting certain measures and then kind of making these adjustments or making kind of a bit of improvements on existing knowledge, right? You can create knowledge in that way by all means, but there's a different type of knowledge which in the science is called these paradigm shifts, which is kind of coming from that scientific revolutions, was the term by Thomas Kuhn, and that kind of a sense of the paradigm, the shift in paradigm. I was always very attuned to that since very young. That was really one of the reasons I went to science. And the science that I was doing back then, I wanted to do more of that paradigm shift in the science than the improvement one. And that was kind of the all these kind of ideas, these fragmented ideas here and there. They kind of start to build in something that is more coherent, which is then the concept of rare dose. We come later, but pretty much is to start to perceive this uncertainty, not something as a place of anxiety, which it is as well, don't get me wrong, but it can also be a place where you have to go there with a sense of curiosity to let go certain things, certain assumptions on the side for the time being, and ability to then create that paradigm shifts or change so pronounced in your perception that you create a kind of a new world around you. So that is really kind of the essence of try to see the uncertainty from a different perspective, not from a crisis, but more as a source of creativity. And that very shift by itself, it's very challenging to do as you speak with the people that are experts and like they are risk managers and everybody in particular in the industry of finance, they already have like their preconceived idea of what uncertainty is, what needs to be done. And if you approach from a different angle, the other side of the coin, that actually the uncertainty can be a source of creativity, they just can't, they can't, look into that in that eyes. It's like a 6 versus 9, that they stick with their position and it's very difficult for them to change the perception
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
other side. And they just like, and then we get into arguments. I am right, you are wrong. And then I just stop there because there's no point to continue the argument because this is not about argument. It's about a change of perspective. And this is like the thing that I see, like the more people are more experts it is good in the sense that you are becoming knowledgeable in that kind of a perspective paradigm,
yeah.
but at the same time it's preventing you to kind of do that transition, that shift to a different paradigm. And this is really like kind of the struggle that I see in others, and I also, of course, I see in myself. But I got used to this, to do this kind of shifts in paradigm from an early age, because that was really what I was attuned. Like even reading books
Yeah.
from quantum mechanics and so on. From early age, I was very attuned of trying to shift my paradigm in my own mind, and I got used to that from early on. But most people are trained into the expertise type of kind of knowledge progression.
For me, that's very, very interesting. Okay. Um, and I know that we've had many conversations, and the, there was something that kicked up in our conversations. You used the word glimpse,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay? Liminal, pre-verbal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And being the person that I am, I'm constantly searching, okay? I'm constantly asking questions. I'm a little over stressed by the stuff that is floating around at the moment.
Right.
Um, you know, if you use this model or this framework, this is what will happen. Okay.
Yeah.
and you'll become very successful. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And I kept on looking at them and I said, why do I feel nauseous or sick reading these things? Because quite frankly, it's such an overstressed world. Right?
Hmm.
Entrepreneurship, leadership, all that stuff is just overstressed. This model works, use that model. Um, and I've always come out of it. Okay, so
Hmm.
sharing this with you with the question, so what?
Hmm.
Okay. And the only reason that I asked that question is that I think it missed the most important part, which was where am I in this?
Right.
Okay, firstly. And the second thing is glimpses, all the things that were non-obvious, non-logical, okay, that I ignored at the time, okay,
Hmm.
eventually landed up with me working even harder, right? And taking on even bigger projects and walking around trying to appease somebody else all the time, okay, in order to win, my wage or my bonuses, whatever it was, okay. And when I looked at when those failed, right, the first thing is I imbibed the fail. In other words, it was my fault, okay.
Right.
And then there was something in the liminal space saying, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You know, why are you being so hard on yourself? Okay. And then if I started, so in your prompts, what I did is I started looking at some of these
Hmm.
glimpses, pre-verbal stuff through the lens of the rare dots
Right.
AI prompts. Yeah. And suddenly the non-obvious became pretty obvious, meaning in that instance, you were okay. You were doing the right thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to call it right or wrong. Okay. But, you should have stayed with it. Okay. And obviously, there's a whole lot of six-digit figures to go behind that because I didn't stay with it. Okay. So, if you look at the whole uncertainty thing, I think I remember saying to you, oh, was it a couple of months ago when I was working with one of your groups? I said, uncertainty in a strange way gives you incredibly good feedback. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Yeah. And it's instant. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it might bring you to a place where you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that concept of a glimpse and for those who don't know, like Keith actually has been the first kind of a guinea pig in a way on the very first program that I did. It was at the time I think I labeled more thinking the unknown was kind of a more the term that I was using at the time, which was very weird. How can you think the unknown? And then there were like certain terms that were coming out as I was trying to obviously to kind of express the ideas to others, and that glimpse of meaning, that's what I come out at the time, was really the beginning of really putting out there what I perceive was happening to me, and that is could eventually be perceived to what might have been happening to others, but others have not really even recognized that because it's not something that you kind of
Yeah.
learn, and you don't have credentials in terms of a glimpse of meaning, right? And there is no school or university or kind of institution that gives you the approval that having glimpse of meaning is okay. That's actually the part of the very start of the innovation. So it's not part of any of the curriculum. Um, and this is kind of maybe I'm not sure if you wanted to step back because you're coming from the leadership angle, and the leadership actually was one of the first things that made me in a way to leave my career, because that was something that we were talking before, like how come that after 18 years I was in this career that a lot of people will be kind of desiring, and obviously I also aspire for that, and then left. And that was one of the parts, not just like all of that, but one of the things was as I become, say, a leader or so-called leader or in the companies, then I was kind of told to take off these kind of HR courses of how to be a leader and so on, and that's where I start to felt like this BS, right? Not just about like kind of this psychometrics in terms of label, putting us in different four colors. This kind of it was very childish in a way, and also like very dogmatic. And most concerning, it was really going against everything that I was actually doing on my day to day, because on my day to day was more about dealing with the uncertainty, in particular, how the models could break and so on. So, like these words have kind of, it sounded very dogmatic to me, very childish. And how can I be trained as a leader using this kind of frameworks of HR that is just going against everything that I'm actually doing? And that created kind of the beginning of a frustration of trying to see how can I become a better leader. And then I start, doing my search elsewhere outside of the company, to see, because then I actually genuinely wanted to be, a better leader. And that was like the time I end up with Ray Dalio was one of the kind of the inspirations back at the time, looking into these principles, and I try to apply some of that in my day to day. But it was kind of always based on kind of information knowledge, and obviously later on in terms of a coaching, mentors outside, more a bit outside. And that things will start to gain momentum in terms of the component of entrepreneurship. Like there was like kind of limitations imposed by in you, because you are just part of the puzzle of a big puzzle when you work for a big company, that it's okay if you wanted to build that career, but at some point, depending on the person, it limits you kind of your agency, your kind of autonomy. And more important for me was like feeling that kind of the work that I was doing, it was not really something that I could use it later on. And then what, like after retirement, then what I'm going to do, right? Kind of watching Netflix and play golf, right? So that was kind of the essence of what they led me outside of this kind of career that at some point I aspire, obviously, to be there. But at some point, they also create that saturation and led me to this more entrepreneur. And that was probably like kind of the glimpse of meaning, right? That you may feel when you are in that situation, that you start to question things. So back to that sense of a glimpse, and I call glimpse of meaning because not just glimpse as some kind of idea here and there, because with this is really the difference between the rare dots and say weak signals and other things that are kind of out there. Is really something like it's pointing you really toward a new paradigm. Now, the concept of paradigm, it doesn't have to be like the scientific one, you don't have to be Einstein or Schrödinger to create a huge paradigm in size. As long as you actually have a different way of thinking and a different way of being, so that actually something becomes possible that was not possible before. Pretty much that is a new paradigm. As long your questions, for example, you start to ask different questions because you're now living in a new paradigm. That's more than enough to qualify in my own terms of a paradigm, because really is a change of thinking and being, and in your actions and in your language as well, that will go all together. And this is really kind of the work that I'm doing now. But it all starts pretty much with a kind of a that glimpse that something is strange here, something doesn't kind of fit. I have something here, kind of almost a hunch in a way, but it's more about that it's pointing to something that is it doesn't fit, but at the same time resonates deeply. And that is why is the combination is so crucial, because it's not just kind of a weak signal, it has to have this tension that it kind of is a glimpse that it doesn't fit, but at the same time, it resonates in the sense of your felt sense, like the term that I was from other people that use this felt sense, because I like things obviously I build on terms of other people, and that felt sense, the combined with the not fitting intellectual, that is where is kind of pointing to really that possible rare dot that will then open to a new paradigm that you can build with, together,
Mm.
or with other people, right?
Well, I mean, from where I'm sitting, but I'm just talking personally. I've
Yeah.
been a natural rebel all my life. Okay.
Hmm.
I just didn't understand authority and the need for it, okay, especially when it was overt. and there was someone trying to control me. Okay? And yet, if I reverse that, and you can call it a paradigm, when I started talking from where I felt or had a sense that what I was doing, and I wasn't even confident, I was assured, pretty self-assured, okay, that if I stayed with this, it would work, okay. Now talking not just work for me, but also work for people around me, okay, because I had the ability to have these really, really cool conversations with people. I used to be incredibly criticized by the board. The board.
Yeah.
My dress code, my affability, my ability to engage with people on the shop floor, in the boardroom. Okay, and they said that's not very professional. Okay, you need to just maintain certain boundaries. Okay, and walk around with a pinstripe suit and a tie. Right, and nothing shocked me even more than that. Right. It's like a suit? No chance. Okay. Anyways, but when I looked at those moments, those episodes, and those incidents, what I can say to you quite openly, those were the times when those impositions, right, all right, by people who I wouldn't even say were less competent, were less conscious of what they were doing. Okay? Were the greatest stressors in my life. Okay. And eventually put me in a place where I started making decisions which I wouldn't have made under duress. Okay. And the net cost of it was, loss of millions. Okay. Not just to me, to other people. Okay. So when I met you and the stuff started coming in through the AIs, through the prompts, and I think there were a series of 3 or 4 prompts. Okay. Now, I don't know if you remember what I was doing in your sessions. Everybody else was trying to figure out how to use the prompts. Okay.
Yeah, that was the very first one.
Yeah, I was just like racing ahead. It's like, all right, so we've got over here. So do the next one and the next one, and the next one. And I stopped worrying about mistake phobia. Just do it. See what happens. Well known to have to go back, completely wipe out all the prompts and redo the whole exercise again once I'd actually established, what the next steps should be. But now that I'm talking to you, I think I wouldn't, given my own life's experiences, having run big multinationals, okay, and also I mean, at the one company I worked for did $2 billion a year, okay. I did the leadership transition there with, from senior management to leadership. And I found that they found it very easy to work with me because I wasn't hitting them with a psychometric.
Right. Yeah.
So I wasn't the coach arriving there with a handful of psychometrics, right? And then handing over these to the incumbent CEO of this big company. Yeah. I pushed them into how they wanted to make meaning of this.
Yeah.
And with the transition being what they were going to go through, how did they perceive, see, feel, what this might be for themselves? Okay. The incumbent CEO loved this. Okay. He liked the idea. Okay. Of really getting it out there. Okay. So the whole concept of the room came through there. So in the book that I've written, and it's all work that you and I have done.
Yeah.
I go and visit you in your room, and you sometimes visit me in my room. Okay. And I just said, we need to get into this world of it's okay to feel free to let people know what your truth is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Okay. And feel safe about that. Okay. Whereas the world that you come from and I used to be in, it wasn't always safe. Okay. To speak the truth in front of the chairman or in front of the directors. or in front of so and so and so and so. Okay. And I realized what happened is in situations like that, we land up kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
Instead of actually in that moment, in your famous words, kairos moment, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
just say, hey, whoa, I'm not ready to make a decision here. I need to rethink this for myself. I'm just going to grab one of Nuno's prompts and then put it through there and
Right.
see what the thinking is, because it may actually expose something that we are not seeing,
Yeah.
or uh, we may have a glimpse of it, okay,
Hmm.
but we haven't got some kind of a tangible way of saying this is what we are seeing.
Yes, yes. And I think this is kind of a different concept, and maybe we can dive a bit there. As when I come up with the ideas, and I was having like the first cohorts, and it was like this. I call it, and I quote it from Bellotto, was a is a neuroscientist, that refers that to go to A to B, you cannot really go in a kind of a direct line. You actually need to go A to not A to B, where the not A is the place of uncertainty. Right, so pretty much I develop the cohorts and the programs at the beginning, and they were more about that journey from going A to not A to having kind of that glimpse of meaning, and to have be more comfortable sitting on uncertainty, almost as a relationship with uncertainty. It was more kind of have the ability to shift your perception of uncertainty, that is only a place of anxiety, that could also be a place of creativity, and from there all that glimpse, all of their thoughts will start to emerge, and then from there we'll start to connect. And that was really pretty much the journey that I was going with the people. Was more about A to not A, and it was pretty much what I did in last year and the year before. Now, what I realize is that obviously it's being in not A is not something that you wanted to be there internally, or you can be in there in a different context and different things that you are working on. But at some point, having that glimpse and having kind of a coming out with the ideas, they're only going to be good if you're actually able to create a new paradigm, which is the place of B, right? And that
Hmm.
kind of a journey of more going into the not A to B as well, that is what I felt was still missing in the cohorts that I was giving to people, and you've been there obviously, and also like for more in relation to the world as well, because the world that we are in now in 2026 is dramatically different than in 2025. So there's a lot of the people, there's a huge saturation as well in terms of the market ideas, like the things are people have like even thinking about going back, consultants, entrepreneurs that have been like on this journey for quite a long, and they're actually thinking about going back into, say, having a corporate job, because it's just like really kind of in a condition for a lot of people is really challenging. People are facing in 2026 for a different combination of reasons. And because of that, and I was like perceiving that already being happening, that's where I start to focus more as well on that journey from the not A to B, because it's good that you have that glimpse. It's true is that you have like that realizations, almost a sense of vindication as well, that after all there was some truth in there, and the truth can be subjective. We don't work here necessarily with just objective truths. But then what? Like what you're going to do with that, right? Because the
Well,
issue really is that you can be creative, you can like having kind of a so-called awakening, that's kind of the terms of personal development. But then, so what? What are you going to do with that? You can't just like be just writing stuff and hoping that kind of the revenue will come to you, because at the end of the day you live in a reality of society that you need to pay the bills at the end of the day, right? No, the point is that how can I then create this something for people that already are in that note? They already kind of more attuned to their own glimpse that will come from their unique life experience. So each one has different glimpse. They are more attuned to be sitting in that uncertainty. They are starting to connect the dots. They are like realizing that ability to also change the perspectives, like kind of that paradigm shifts. They get that capabilities, that skills, but then, how can I actually help them to go a step further and create something coherent as a new paradigm? so they can actually then build something from there that will also bring revenue. That's why I then label the new program as rare dust revenue, which is actually something that is creates value to them, but to others. But also be mindful that in the process you don't want to go into A back again, right? So this is really
Mm.
the challenge is like how to create kind of that journey from not A to B as a new paradigm without having you to go back to A, right? And that
Well,
is really the challenge, and that is really the prompts what they do, because that was where I saw AI. That was I was already playing a long time ago with AI, and even before ChatGPT, because I had my work and I was already kind of playing well before others. And I always saw it was not really AI per se, it's more kind of a language as a tool. It's like the ability to play with words and kind of create even new words. And it's more because, and why is this important? Because the way you think and the language that you use, they are very connected. This is coming as well. Certain people ask, how come that you me like I have all this background in finance, mathematics. It's very kind of a mathematical language that I used to do. How come that I am now interested on language? Well, it's mathematics itself is a language in a way. It has like all the rules in there, but nevertheless, it is a language that allow us to think in a particular way. And I'm more attuned in terms of how you think, like in that kind of a more coherent ways. And
mm,
what I did was, okay, I have my ways of thinking that I use in my kind of these paradigm shifts and building coherence and so on. How about I actually train AI with my own way of thinking, and other people can use that as a prompt, so they can feed their materials, they can feed their kind of ideas, but then they kind of it's almost like borrow my mind, my brain, and having like kind of this thinking in a way that they will then start to create their own new paradigm from that prompt. So the prompt is not
mm.
necessarily something just to kind of clarify your ideas. It's actually a kind of embedded way of thinking, which is kind of the thinking that I have developed through the years. And that is really kind of the essence of the prompts. It's more kind of a scaffolding. I call it scaffolding as a way of thinking that allows you
Yeah.
to play around and almost kind of borrow, my way of thinking, and then you come out with your own stuff, right?
Well, on that one, I must, strangely enough, in the book I wrote, when I met Keegan, I think I've mentioned Keegan to you a few
Mm-hmm.
times. He was my program director and supervising professor when I did my dissertation. I liked him. Okay. You know, he wasn't the normal professorial professor. Okay. He was the most affable, easygoing guy in the world. Okay. And he wasn't fixated on wrong or right. Okay.
Yeah.
He wasn't fixated on that. He was actually a PhD in psychotherapy, believe it or not. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually headed up Harvard's adult professional development side. Yeah. So I mean, he was a very, very decent bloke, but he never fixated on wrong or right.
Mm-hmm.
And I found in his book that he really gave certain psychologies and certain psychometrics a hiding. Okay.
Right.
Because they missed the idea. Okay. But the one thing that he spoke about is that most of our life we live in a borrowed mind.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I thought was rather cute. Okay. And if you look at the way I've written about this, I did have a borrowed mind,
Mm-hmm.
from childhood through
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
adolescence into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only sort of late adulthood where I said, I'm tired of this borrowed mind. I
Mm-hmm.
need another mind. Okay. My mind, right? And my mind needs to be the mind that I'm using,
Mm-hmm.
right, to tell my story
Mm-hmm.
and offer my work to the world that I want to create and live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, the prompts that we got, and I haven't shared them because I know that you've got they're basically yours. They're not,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But the content, definitely, I have shared. You have a copy of it on your desk there. Okay. Um,
Yeah, the output is something that's each person. The prompt
yeah,
itself is a proprietary. Yeah.
but there is actually nothing out there at the moment. And at one stage, I was getting pretty ambitious, and thought, I wonder if Nuno knows everything there is to know about AI. Okay. Maybe I should do one of these short courses at Oxford or at MIT or something. And
I
I
don't
could
think
see you
anyone
shaking
knows.
your head. It's like, so cough up your $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, and you go and you listen to some guy droning off, and you work in a little cohort. And I thought, no, no, that's not going to work. Okay? Um, because what I've learned from it through these things, okay, is that the words that I would have probably given less credence in terms of agency over my own life
Mm,
was what makes meaning to me.
yeah.
How do I fulfill that? And here's the other one: interest. What
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
interests me?
Mm-hmm.
And what I can say to you, with my hand on my heart or on my head or wherever you put your hands these days, um, the work that you do in the cohorts that you do has remained interesting for me. Okay. Uh, it's given me a sort of, let's say I'm invigorated. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling fulfilled. I'm feeling that I can actually do more with this. And you will know
Right.
that I've been peppering Substack and I've been
Yeah.
peppering LinkedIn with posts. And in the past, I would never have had the boldness to do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was always trying to find a language to appease a reader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, the performative approach. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of a language that appeased me.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like that element because obviously there's also kind of what we are doing here is also in a way related to with creating new categories and this kind of more of the marketing or business terms. There is some of that, but really the essence is the starting point that we go through in the journey. As a lot of the things out there is like about, oh, let's try to identify a problem, and then we have like kind of a solution, we niche down, and then you create potentially a new language, a new brand, and that's kind of my own stuff. What we are doing is not any of that. Is the starting point is completely different because we don't even know what problem necessarily we are solving. We just have like this glimpse into a new potentially paradigm. And what the prompts do is to create output that you're going then they have like this ability to choose which ones are more connected to you. And this is like what is important to refer is that the prompts is not necessarily some kind of a rigid framework that will tell you, oh, you have to do this, this, and that based on your input. It's nothing to do with that. It's more about it's giving you certain options, some kind of a three or four, and then it's more up to you, more from a creative side. And sometimes I even quote Rick Rubin in terms of how to create music on his own way. What we are doing is creating a business in a kind of creative way, which is your felt sense of what does it resonates deeper with you, even if you don't know yet why is that. When you try without trying to justify, without trying to have that full performative, what must be correct? Because remember, the correct what must be correct is your old paradigm. So if you are trying to build a new paradigm, what must be correct is actually a terrible question to ask. So it's more
Well,
about like really to have your felt sense, kind of that meaning making in a way, and that is why and we as we going through the cohorts that develop each other in different seasons, there was more about emphasis pretty much about the journey of how people read and how people are going through the prompts more than the prompt itself, because a lot of the things was
yeah,
like if you are approaching as a good student that you wanted to read
yeah,
everything and you wanted to do it right, it just doesn't going to work that way because you have to have that ability of a creative. So a lot of the things actually I work with people is that even if people have the prompts, even if they are running the prompts in front of them, still will not be enough because they actually need to be with someone like in the group or with me that actually kind of a bit of a training in a way of that new capacity
Yeah,
that people were not being told how to do in that how to really be creative in a with a discipline. There's actually kind of a bit of a discipline of being creative. It's not just some kind of a random. You don't like throwing paint on a wall and then call it creativity. It's not like that. There's actually a sense that you can train yourself. It's a bit of a skill. It's not something that you are born. You have to be born like that. It's actually is that you can be trained. The issue is that no one has been trained that except if you are an artist, right? But what we are doing here is really kind of going through the prompts and
yeah,
also you have your own journey, an internal journey that you are going to evolve along the process. So it's kind of a two journeys, like the one that is the prompt, like on the more utilitarian that way, and the other is your internal that will take you over how you feel, how you're going to grow, how you're going to
yeah,
change,
yeah, yeah.
how you're going to transform, how you're going to bring that kind of more of the glimpse into a more coherent, what does it really mean to you? And that is a very personal journey, right? That's kind of the essence of it.
Yeah, I was just about to comment on that. The in the time that I've been running my workshops, which went back, started just after the pandemic, okay?
Yeah.
Because I left full-time employment, but through some really shitty circumstances and situations, I ended up losing clients, okay, and income, and the normal post-pandemic
Yeah.
sort of stuff, okay. Um, but the my curiosity was too strong, okay.
Hmm.
I started my own type of my own workshops. I don't call them anything else, okay. I just call them workshops, and I call them
Hmm.
leading in uncertainty. And the reason I started them is I was curious, okay. And everybody was post-pandemic stressed. They just
Yeah.
like so the workshops were just full. Okay. Um, and I gave I didn't like allow anything. I said this is for me. People had the latitude to do whatever they wanted in those workshops. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and then I would imagine a couple of years ago we met you. Okay. And
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you you wandered in off the street. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but the thing that became really important for me, there was a point that you made earlier on, is that it is personal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed when I was watching your guys um, that some of the personal stories were starting to bleed into the sessions. Okay.
Mm.
And I was more fascinated by those stories
Hmm.
because I believed that that person was on the journey of really understanding who he was when he
Hmm.
wasn't a contractor or an employee
Hmm.
or this. Okay. And some of the most interesting stories. And then the stuff that is coming out of Substack, even so much.
Hmm.
Well, they were going into the the personal story, the history,
Hmm.
okay, uh, and becoming more safe with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of
Yeah,
self-assurance in a way. Not
yeah,
dogmatic confidence, but more
yeah,
self-assurance.
but
Yeah.
yeah. Confidence is a bit
Compass.
of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
strange word, okay.
Yeah.
But they were coming into that world, okay, and they were coming into that world because they felt that they could be safe there and they could engage in the problem. They could understand their own vulnerabilities. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt that that was pretty refreshing. Okay. And I know that I tend to speak past my station. Okay. Meaning I would tell anybody any problem that I'd had in my life. Okay. That and I wouldn't be shy about it. Okay.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to you about the famous Brené Brown. Okay. When you're trying to do something perfect, he said, why don't you just do the shitty first draft?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just get it down in the best way that you can, and have a go, see what
Yeah.
happens. So that was where the whole permission to think differently came in. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and I think that's where the work that you do for me is incredibly fulfilling. Okay, because I
Hmm.
don't feel that I'm being censored or filtered at all. Okay. And then I have some way of actually working the stuff, and the information. So bringing it in from all over the place through those prompts gets me to something that is, we mentioned the book. That's just
Hmm.
first draft of that book. God knows what else is coming out there. Something else will
Yeah,
pop up.
yeah,
Something, and knowing me now because I've got like the energy and the agency to do whatever I bloody will like.
yeah.
Uh, I've now got another book that's going to come out. If you think that book's controversial, okay, you wait until you read the next one. It's even that is going to be pure madness at a level that nobody has ever understood. Because I believe in that outside of the. I remember saying to you, there's the paradigm and there's that which is outside of the paradigm,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is the next level. Okay.
yeah.
So when I do work in my own sessions and I do ask questions, they actually push up against a particular boundary somewhere. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just just jump over the boundary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
ask the question from what's outside the boundary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you get various reactions. Some of them are pretty blasphemous, to be honest, but it's fine. Okay. Some of the other questions that I have got for you is fulfillment, meaning where to next for you? What do you want from this?
Right.
And
So
most importantly, how do people get hold of you? Because at the moment I'm batting them at you at like I'm just like everybody I'm talking to. So don't be talking to me now. Talk to Nuna. Okay.
no,
Um,
I mean, in terms of reaching out, I have obviously the LinkedIn, the Substack is the best contact. LinkedIn is usually the best. I'll
yeah.
put like the contacts, or maybe on the where I don't know where this is going to be, but whatever it is linked to this video, I'll be the
Yeah.
links in there. But in terms of really, I wanted maybe even going a bit back when you referred that you have that essence of work that is yours and that you wanted to do more that is also obviously is related to revenue at some point, but going back into that initial say frustration that I had in terms of my career, the reason I left is in a way answering that in the sense that it's kind of a work that you do that you feel is yours. It's coming from within. It's creating value to the others. It's also giving the revenue that is also part of the next cohort. Is like how to make this even more, in terms of the so-called scaling, but I prefer amplify. There's a better term for us. Uh, that is something is almost a quest, right? It's almost work and life becomes kind of one. It's your business in a way is a reflection of your of or your own self that is also growing together. So it's not kind of a static, and the more you grow in your business, the more you grow inside you, and vice versa, right? So that is really like kind of the way I perceive what is really the essence of entrepreneurship. Really is really kind of putting something that is inside you and building from inside out, not kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and what I see, unfortunately, because people talk about, entrepreneurship and corporate, what should I choose? And to be quite frank, and this was something that I was obviously finding out as I move into the entrepreneurship in more on the digital and so on, is that a lot of the so-called entrepreneurs, and I'm really not criticizing because it's the system pretty much, is not that different from a corporate because they are still chasing kind of in this case an algorithm trying to fit in is always something that you always kind of a borrow. You are in someone else's mind in a way. They say they are not, but actually they are, and this kind of what allow us is really to create something that is even like forget about like the algos and all of that. It's actually you are creating your own world, and obviously there's the reality that you're going then to kind of a challenge that, but above all is creating something that is coherent, that is yours, and then you can
Yeah.
attract people into your own world. And this was like the last thing I wanted to share as you're referring that experience that you saw on other people. You can think, okay, maybe what each one of us is creating is too niche. This kind of the typical kind of the concerns, and they are valid concerns from people they have. Okay, maybe if I go through that journey, what I end up is just too niche. It's just too out. It's just maybe just me that will get this, and then no one will be able to move together. Well, at the beginning, it may sound like that because at some point you are also discovering about yourself more than really creating a business. It's two things that you are doing at once. But at the end of the day, we're actually not as different as we thought we are in terms of each other's. Yes, we are different, but at the same time, we are not. There's a lot of resonance, a lot of things that you are creating kind of a pathway or kind of creating a paradigm that as you are creating, actually, people will resonate to that. Not only resonate, but they also create a sense of a rupture in terms of they wanted to move into your new paradigm because you are the one that for the first time they put words and thinking and the being in that place that they already felt that way in a way, but they could not really say and thinking in that way. And you were the one who opened that gate to others, right? And obviously, only a handful of people, or not handful, but only kind of a percentage of people are able to create the paradigm that the others will get into there. And that is really the essence of being an entrepreneur and being comfortable with that uncertainty, because it's obviously not for everybody. I'm not going to say everybody should join the journey. It's more for those who have that kind of a sense of a frustration, of a kind of a maybe even a kind of that glimpse into something that is they think is something wrong here. There's something a new possibility somehow, and they are keen to explore more of that in themselves first, and also like then bring a business
Yeah,
from there. Like kind of that the essence of who is more kind of preparing that in that stage of life to start the journey in this way. Because obviously there is uncertainty, there is elements that you need to change about the way you operate in the world that to certain people it's just they don't even want that, right? Because it creates a lot of insecurities, right? They are
yeah,
accommodated to their titles and careers and so on. They just don't want that. Then fine. But the essence is that if you are going to that journey, you actually are going to create something that it's not just a new language, is a new thinking, and above all, and this really just to conclude here, is very different from, say, the typical kind of a vision, like a vision statement, right? It's very important, by the way, to have like that vision statement. Where do you want
yeah,
to see yourself, and so on and so on. But here, really, the vision statement can be a bit misleading because it can be kind of it can lead into kind of a self-delusion. This is really kind of the problem about the self-delusion, is because you believe so much on something, but there's actually nothing in there than just like a glimpse. And what we are doing here is more than that. It's not just kind of a vision statement. It's actually,
yeah,
yes, we start with that glimpse, but we're going to forge and we're going to do the work with in a group and so on and so on to really create that paradigm. And what the paradigm really means is that you are making something possible that was not possible before, and you are actually able to use that not just in your day to day, but with others, because it comes with different questions that you are asking. It does not come necessarily with answers, but it comes with the different questions. It comes with the ability to think and being in a different way, that you're going to start to perceive even things that were not well perceived in the old paradigm. They become more attuned to you, and that's where you're really creating value from there. And it's something that is becoming tangible, but only after you create that paradigm, then you create the things that you
yeah,
actually
yeah,
become more tangible. That is the essence, not just some kind of I have an idea and then let's have a leap of faith and just like grab others like from this ability to be charismatic. You need that in a way, yes, I don't deny, but actually if you're able to create a paradigm, that becomes more secondary than really. Otherwise it's just like kind of it's like there's no substance in that kind of things, right?
well, I tell you, always, yeah, I always enjoy the conversations. The thing that stands up for me is the ability to create a language, right, that may resonate with somebody else, right?
Hmm.
And now, as you know, I've been very active, right, since I finished the last cohort. Okay? But not only have I been very active, I do have a following of clients who actually
Hmm.
pay me.
Hmm.
Yeah?
Hmm.
Um, and I've been introducing the ideas and the concepts. So I've been battling them between my workshop and your cohort and back.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's why you will find some of your people in my workshops,
Yeah.
and you'll find some of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
people in my workshops in your
Yeah.
cohorts.
Yeah.
But for me, there's definitely the value of it is cannot be underestimated. the idea of fulfilling your life, okay, and coming out
Mm-hmm.
of the end of this story, okay,
Mm-hmm.
having pursued a life where you get thrown out as the baggage, okay, you are too
Mm-hmm.
old, or you're too this, or you're too that. I managed to cop onto that when I was in my early mid 40s, okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
40s, yeah. Um, and I copped on to the idea that, I don't mind doing work, right? So I came from owning a company, right? So apparently,
Mm-hmm.
I discovered subsequently that it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Okay? But the fact of the matter is that when I left that world and I moved into a very strange world, okay? Because I'm a big guy and I'm a physical guy and I'm, typical South African guy. Okay, yeah, I enjoy the physicality. Okay, so I started working as a construction worker.
Right.
But I found that when I was working amongst these guys, there were some amazing minds
Mm.
at work. Yeah, because of course, I had to go to college and get a doctorate, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a smart guy. I was an intellect, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I discovered there was an intellect on those construction sites that you could not get in the halls of
Right.
academia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I just, the one thing that I did is it brought a lot of laughter into my world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought language into my world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so what I do know about the your prompts and the language that it
Mm-hmm.
creates, that it's readable.
Right.
Even I can understand it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to make this note. I know that when I was just getting towards the end of my dissertation, okay, I was told by one of the supervisors, it's not academic enough. I
Right.
said, so I had to go back and re-academize it, if you
Right.
know what I'm saying. But the funny thing about it is, like when you get through the gate, they suddenly have the freedom, okay, right? And I remember that. And I'll respect one of my supervisors for saying that. He says, just get this through the gate, and you can do whatever you bloody will like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I started getting into your world, and I thought to myself, I would rather have done this work. This is a testimony to your work, by the way,
Right.
that gives me a sense of fulfillment,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know how long I'll live, okay? There are various theories from other people, right? That I will probably die because I drink too much whiskey and smoke too much. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm going to die anyway. I might as well die for something that gave me some gratification. Okay. Um, um, and I kind of look at all these really inspirational stories, and I think yours is a very inspirational story. I think I'd be very curious about how much more you want from this in terms of fulfilling this journey for yourself,
Right.
what it is somebody like me, who happens to be a follower, right, of your work,
Mm.
can do. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've been talking to someone in Sydney just recently, Sydney, Australia,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
PhD. Okay. He may have made contact with you already. I have been speaking to another guy that I've been introduced to in South Africa, also
Mm-hmm.
smart guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Not that one. There's another one now. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. The one thing that I can tell you, right, without putting names to people, okay,
Mm-hmm.
is they actually don't know where to next.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they will
Yeah, I
come out
got
of
you.
some kind of a glitzy corporate career,
Yeah.
running companies and all that kind of stuff. And, they've sort of moved past that. They don't know where
Mm-hmm.
to next
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because they're so conditioned to appeasing, right? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, my famous word in the dictionary or in the marketing world, right,
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
USPs,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
unique selling propositions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have one, and I don't do them. Okay, my USP is me and my
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what can we do to take you and get more people into your world, if that's what you want, of course?
Right. You mean like to my world, like to
The rare dots
the
world.
rare dots, yes. So No, obviously there's a lot of the things of people asking um, things like, will it work for me? What's next? Because there's that instance of trying to too much in advance of how they want to know in advance how it's going to end. Like it's like almost like you go to a movie to see a movie and you want to know how it's going to end before it starts, you know. And that is because of people are like more and more conditioned into that fear of the uncertainty. At the end of the day, is related to
Yeah.
our perception of uncertainty. That even like Hollywood and they actually like put kind of they almost share pretty much the movie before you see the movie in that kind of a 2 or 3 minutes clip, right? So because otherwise people they don't they fear. Is it kind of a huge fear these days and for other reasons as well around the world. And I think that as of now, we are living kind of a 2026 that I'm referring about is a combination of a huge saturation, which is also coming from AI in the sense. So we are working with AI, but the other side of the AI that we all know is that is too much of content or things that are not well thought, and there's just too much saturation out there. No, that's one thing. And the other thing is obviously the huge uncertainty that is around the world that people are not even like blocking potential business because they wanted to know how it's going to end before they start. And so that is like the thing that is the biggest challenge is like how to have people have a glimpse in a way of how this kind of operates in a reasonable short time so they can engage further into the process, right? So the cohorts, in a way, the ones that we work, they work well for that first adopters is the term that I use, and they were like 4 weeks. But at some point, the if you wanted to go to other people, I need to produce something like now I'm going to develop, which is simply a 3 day, just for people to have a grasp, first results, how this is going to unfold, and so on, even like kind of the method. So they kind of feel like, okay, this actually has a sense in there. There's kind of a kind of a reason for how the things are being done. And then if they wanted to invest more time into that, they will be kind of a longer program. So that's kind of the usual kind of a more the marketing in a way. But the things that I'm using, and I'm more and more kind of putting components of marketing, but not like the marketing that we know these days, is pretty much based on FOMO and these kind of things. Is more kind of first principles of certain components in marketing that really operates in the sense of how to bring people into a new paradigm, to have that kind of overcoming that fear that they need to justify, they need to kind of know in advance how it's going to end, and it has created kind of a bit of desire, curiosity enough, so they actually are becomes so curious that overcomes the fear in a way,
Mm.
and also realize that maybe there's something in them for there they would not even like think about that could be useful in kind of a non-obvious way, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is kind of the essence because I honestly, and I'll be lying if I will be saying to the person, this is exactly what you're going to get for you, because that will be killing the process. It is like the component of them actually going through the process of having them like, choosing the things, how it
Yeah. Yeah.
really feels to them. I cannot do that journey for them. I'm producing more kind of the capacity or the ability or kind of the scaffolding in a way for them to carry a journey. But I'll be lying saying, okay, this is exactly what you are going to get, because that defeats the purpose. There's an element of the non-obvious, kind of the non-linear journey that they will start to realize maybe at the middle of the process. They start to realize, okay, this is really how this I'm really going to implement this in that part of my
Yeah.
business, my
Yeah.
life. I was not even thinking about that at the very start, because that is really the purpose of going from that A to not A to B. Otherwise it will be just A to B like everything else that is promising you. And what we end up as nowadays, it's just like more of the same. You open LinkedIn, you
Yeah.
open social media, you open books. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say, but it's like always the same thing. It's like you can just squeeze a bit, and the juice you get is like, is the same thing as everybody's saying. And if you are okay with that, then be that way. You stay with the sameness, but then don't complain that you are invisible to AI. Don't complain that LinkedIn doesn't treat you well with the algo and so on, because you made yourself like being kind of the same person as the other, because you're not having like that kind of a curiosity
Well,
combined with the courage to actually unfold what is unique to you and what you can really bring uniquely to the others. So that is a choice of each one I have to make.
yeah, well, and what an excellent conversation. I hope the recording goes well. And I'm glad I'm leaving it to you because if I had to record it, I'd probably lose the bloody thing. Um, but I think I sort of for me the world of uncertainty has been sort of very present in my life from as long as I can remember. Are you with me?
Yeah, yeah.
I grew up in a very violent country and in a very violent family. Yeah. So I just, I didn't, for me, I woke up the next morning, that was a good day. Okay. Um, and it's a personal story, but it's now it's not a sad story because it actually became an asset. Okay. Which means I can sit here and I can decide what I want to do. If I wanted to make money, I could do whatever I wanted to go and make money. Okay. And you're going to probably want to edit this. A lot of guys said, well, don't you want a lot of money? I said, well, that's easy. I said, I can either be a drug runner or a gun runner. And there's plenty of business out there,
Yeah.
There's plenty of ways to make money. Okay? But can you do it in a way that you really, feel that you're fulfilled? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you're doing something that is actually worthy of you, okay, and that you don't have to be some super intellectual, okay. That would be the other one. And then I always live by this thing. That a means to an end is not the end in itself. Okay. And you would have seen Richard Attenborough, celebrating his 100th birthday recently. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does a man like that just keep going?
Yeah. It's quite amazing.
Yeah. He finds fulfillment in what he does. Okay. Yeah. He used to be a great carouser, he used to smoke and drink and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Kind of his family, his mother. I mean, they brought in the kind of that kind of environment.
Yeah, but
the adventure.
We need to understand that there's a much richer way of living your life. Okay. I honestly will continue to encourage people to speak to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Then that's the very least that I can say to them. Okay. And then they said, well, we're talking to you. I said, no, don't talk to me. You speak to Nuno. Okay. The only reason I'll actually let people talk to me is if they're actually seriously want to talk to me about something. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. So that I have as you know, I have my wildcard Fridays. Now offer it. If you turn up,
yeah.
If you don't turn up, fine. It's excellent. All right. So I think that we've thrashed those questions to bits.
Yes. Thank you for being here and for inviting me, Keith, as well.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. No, I really, really enjoy the work a lot. And I'll continue to encourage people to attend. Okay. There are a lot of people when you did a presentation or you did a session, right? Some months ago. Some have joined you and never come back to me, which is fine. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I'm absolutely, believe it or not, if that particular individual that I'm talking to, I think has done extremely well out of your work.
Yeah. Very well.
And there are others who I thought was just starting to get it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But it's very difficult to take somebody off a pedestal. Okay.
Right.
Meaning, if I know everything.
Well, we don't know, but we don't.
Then what's the point of talking to you? Okay.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Whereas I say, I always start with the default of Manuel, faulty towers. I know nothing.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just interested in, but for me, the experience of life has to be fulfilled. Okay. And there are guys your age and my age out there who don't know how. They don't know where to next. Okay. And they keep on banging on their old drum. Okay. I hope that the same music is going to play.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is that drum is no longer the drum. That we, we're not beating on that drum anymore. Okay.
Oh no, no, and it's going to be, I think, quite a shock for people because I think we are really in a big transition worldwide, and I'm not just referring in a political sense and even beyond AI. That is really like at some point, it's people will realize that it's just it's going to be just a different world.
It's already is a different world, and
It's already yeah, already
yeah,
is yes.
I'm embracing it. Yeah, I completely embrace it.
Yeah,
In the old days, I could put myself out as a consultant for 50 or 100 grand a year. Okay.
mm,
I'll be lucky if I get 10 or 20. Okay.
right.
Because they have all hit the AI button. Okay. And there's a whole lot of companies that are saying you can't use AI, in our company. And
Hmm.
meantime, in the background, they're using it all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm using it, but I'm also, I think it's really important for people who listen to this particular conversation, is the storyteller is still you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. The, the AI is useless without the narrative.
Yeah, yeah. That's there's always that human
Yeah.
component because the value is created from there. It's just things.
Absolutely. And I think really important for us to both realize that. So I keep on telling stories. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, some of them are true. Most of them are true, actually. Sometimes they're a bit embellished, which is fun. Okay. But I just want to thank you for your time. I think it's been I hope that you've enjoyed the
No,
conversation.
very much, Keith. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.